Hello, one and all, and welcome to another video on the Baggers Chat YouTube channel. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and as always, we are joined by Ethan Duffy. And today, we are focusing right here, right now, on the draft ahead in November. I think it's the 17th or 16th of November, Duffy Boy, by memory. But yeah, it's a big sort of I guess it's our next big sort of dates heading into 2026. That's kind of our next big sort of period that we'll be focusing on because we probably weren't expecting to be this sort of active in the draft, but now we have a few top end picks, and we obviously have a few guys that potentially could be coming to the club through Father Sons and Academy picks as well. I think it's a great position for the Carlton Football Club to be in. But first things first, mate, I'll throw straight to you. How are you and your initial thoughts ahead of this draft?
Yeah, it's like you said, I feel like when you head into the draft, like a couple of months prior, you don't think you're ever going to be busy, like real busy. Like even last year, we traded and obviously got pick 3, so that was kind of out of the blue. And I think people will speak about that more as the season goes on in 2026 with Jagger Smith obviously playing, because when he's not out there, no one's going to obviously talk about it. But when he's out there, I reckon that there's going to be a few, media outlets going, gee, they traded up to get him and he's pretty much a pick 1 worthy. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do in the draft. Obviously, you can still trade up until the draft. So I guess it's not the trade period, Pato, but it's still a period where you can trade picks. And I think Carlton are going to be pretty busy with, I think, a few clubs eyeing out pick number 9 with obviously the Harry Dean kind of bid being around that mark. So that pick might get chewed up. So there's a lot to play out. I know Adelaide are looking at that pick. And I know West Coast spoke about bidding on Dean really early, but obviously we'll touch on that a little bit further as we go through each player.
Yeah, no, it's well said to start the video, but yeah, I think there's been a lot of conversation about West Coast. I think we both kind of have the same sort of mindset about this, that it's kind of a scare factor to kind of see if West Coast will potentially take Harry Dean at pick 2. I don't reckon that will happen. Most likely will be around the pick 6, pick 7 mark. Most drafts, the kind of the projected sort of top 20 like the phantom draft, it usually is pretty much accurate. Maybe there's 1 or 2 players that go a little bit higher or a little bit lower than expected. But we'll go straight away, Daffy Boy, into our draft hand, the Carlton draft hand. And our picks at the moment are pick 9, pick 11, 43, 54, 67, and 72. So I know that looking at that, like pick 9 and pick 11 looks very promising, but we obviously know that this is quite a compromised draft with a lot of bids coming through, a lot of academies, a lot of Father Sons that we obviously have access to as well. So I'll throw it out to you, mate. Like, obviously, it's good to see that we do have a lot of picks now, because at the end of the day, the amount of picks we have, that also leads to points as well. And before I do throw it to you, if anyone is quite curious about like the points and how it all works with the picks, Daff found a very good website called Draft Guru, and it actually makes a lot of sense, where you actually write in the pick. If you trade in, trade out, whatever, you actually write in the pick and it gives you the exact value of the pick and the points you get back. So it's pretty good. Like, it's actually quite a good website. You actually told me about it, and now it actually makes a lot more sense, because I know it is quite confusing, the whole points system, but that actually is quite good. So we'll make sure to put the link in the bio below to kind of give yourself a bit more of a bit more knowledge of the point system. But Daff, I'll throw straight to you. Like, your kind of thoughts on this kind of draft hand at the moment. I'm sure you'll be quite happy with how it is at the moment.
Yeah, I was just looking at the indicative draft order and how we got those picks. So obviously, we received 9 through a pick swap with Hawthorn, and obviously got pick 11 through the Curnow trade. So obviously we gave up, I think it was the 31 that the Dogs wanted for Karmas. We ended up packaging that with Curnow, setting that through to make sure we ended up getting the first rounder that we were after. And when you look at that draft hand, I think it's pretty good. You still got some top end picks that you can utilize, whether it's, utilizing those picks just straight up, or trading them off, whether it's for future for next year or trading up, which we will touch on later in the episode in terms of what a kind of trade I think would look like if we were to go up. somewhat realistic. But yeah, I feel like Graham Wright and Nick Austin, I don't think they're going to let this slip. I think they're going to, as someone said, I just read it before, they'd want to, get a home run in this draft and trade period, because I think trade period was a home run. And I think the draft could be an absolute cherry on top if we can end up getting, the two father-son, the father-son and academy selections, and also, a top 6 player. Like, that would be, you head into next year with a lot of optimism with the players that we currently have in the future. That kind of is looking exciting.
It really is exciting, isn't it? Because we speak about how with us being Carlton biased, I think we still think we're kind of around the premiership. Well, not premiership, we know, but I still think we could be classified as a contender heading into 2026. But we also have such young talent, and we're focusing so much on the draft when this year we have 2 picks within the first round. And we also have Harry Dean coming in. We also have a guy like Jack Ison, who we will touch on as well. We got Cody Walker next year.
Yes.
We have a 2026 guy coming in, Jagger Smith, who was our pick 3 last year. I think we're focusing a lot on the now and making sure we're still a contender right here, right now. But we're also focusing on the future, knowing that Tasmania are coming into the comp in a few years' time. We need to make sure that we're preparing for the now and for the 5 years down the track and 10 years down the track. So I just think the way that Nick Austin, as soon as he's come, when did he actually come into the club? 2022?
Yes. I'd say he did the trade period 21 when.
Yeah, so Zach Williams and Sarah.
No, I reckon it was it that one?
No, that was the year before. That was 2020.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, maybe. He might have done that one, but he was definitely there when we got the Hewitt and Chera and all those that kind of new kind of era. But yeah, you're right. He just thinks outside the box, I think, and I know there's been a lot of pressure on him, and I think the recruiting hasn't been the issue. I just think the performance of some of these players. Like, I know we had a few holes in our list, but you look at the list and you go, that team is not a, 10th or 11th team. They should be pushing finals. And rightly so, we copped our fair share from the media. But I think a lot of those players were just playing under themselves, 5-10% worse than what they can. And if you've got most of the group doing that, Pato, recruiting won't matter. Yeah. If players aren't just performing. So obviously there was a few holes we still need to fill, but I'm optimistic with Austin.
Yeah, I think it's always just been I completely agree with that. Where I just think I think most of the time it's not actually down to the draft pick. And say if we a few years ago when we picked Paddy Dow pick 3, that might be questionable. But it's how we developed him. We didn't develop him into the player that we probably expected him to be. He was one of the best midfielders in the draft. So we're not going to not pick him and then he go a pick 20 and then become a superstar. It's just I think it really is down to the development team that as soon as a young player comes in, he needs to be developed right. And we've seen it with Sam Walsh. We've seen it with Cripple. We've seen it with Wiedering. We've seen it with Mackay. So it's great. Yeah. But it's also now we have a absolute genius with Nick Austin at the top of the table. But then we have a decent development team now, hopefully, for a few years' time when we do have these young players coming through. I think it's a very optimistic sort of time, Dapper Boy. But I'll throw straight to you, mate. So what we'll do for this video is I think to kind of I think it would be a good idea for you to kind of just go through the players that we're kind of interested in. Obviously, we know that Harry Dean and Jack Ison are the 2 guys that are expected to come to the Carlton Football Club. But also there are some other players with other scenarios if there are some trades being done and maybe we move up in the draft and who we could kind of be targeting. So I'll throw straight to you, mate. I want you to go through the players and kind of take the reins of this video, which I think would be a good idea. But I'll throw straight to you, mate. Who have we got as our first player?
Yeah, so as soon as you kind of touched on the father-sons, the first name that pops in my mind is Harry Dean. And I think, he's been talked about, I'd say, for probably 2 years. I would say the name's been popping up there, Pato, and he's obviously a highly, highly, highly rated kid. And I think Riley Beveridge and Cal Toomey were saying yesterday on Gettable that he's probably going to be the highest picked key defender in the last 5 to 6 years. So I think we've had some pretty, obviously Wiedering was pick 1, so it's hard to pretty much fuck that up. Pato, I know we have fucked picks up in the past, but he was a genuine star defender. But yeah, I'm really excited about this kid, and obviously the son of Peter, the 1995 defender. And I've had a lot of people, especially my mother, who's obviously a Carlton nuff, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this video now have the memories of Peter Dean and how he played. Obviously, we don't. We're young kids, and I've seen bits and pieces, but I've heard a lot of good things about his dad. And in this quote, kind of reflects how his dad played, in my opinion. So obviously, he's 193 centimeters. He's a key defender. But this is what really, I think I sent it through to you the other day, Pato, and this just got me up and about. This got me off my chair at home, Pato. This gets me excited for round 1 or opening round, whoever the fuck we play in the first, the start of the season. This is from the talent manager at Murray Bush Rangers. So, obviously, a pretty, I'd say a talent manager has a lot of players he's looking at and a lot of players he's focusing on from years. And this is what he had to say. He's so competitive and combative. He just hates losing. It's white line fever. And this is what reflects his father. This is what my mum always says. He literally went on the field and was like a madman. I've never seen a kid like it. And obviously that was said by Mick Wilson, the talent manager. And Pato, I want to hear your thoughts when you hear that, because I think as Carlton supporters for many years, I don't want to bag players. I don't want to put players in a certain group, but we always go, we want a bit more out of these players. It's not always about the talent. We want a bit of, the word we use is CUNT. And I think this kid will live up to that. What are your thoughts?
There's been so many people saying that this guy can go pick 1. So I think like the talent this guy has, which I think is a great thing, is like I think the past probably 4 or 5 years, it's really changed where the top end draftees, they are ready to play AFL straight away. So you kind of see him play, and I know that we're only seeing him in the under-18 championship, so we don't know how he actually will play against AFL. But he looks like a guy who is absolutely dominant, and he's a level above, and he's playing against other draftees in his draft class. I just think he is with what I've seen with the highlights of Harry Dean, I think he's the exact third defender we need for 2026 alongside Wiedering, and whether it's Haynes or Lewis Young or Mitch McGovern, whoever it is, I think Harry Dean plays round 1, which is crazy to say because, we speak about how we have so many key socks, but I think this is a guy that comes straight into the side and makes us automatically better. It's not like like I want him in the depth like in Harry O'Farrell last year, where we probably wanted him to play a few years in the VFL and kind of be mentored by Jacob Wiedering. But no, I want Harry Dean to come straight in. And it's so good that he's 193 centimeters because he can play tall, but very similar to Nick Haynes, he can play smaller as well. So, and you said there as well about the Carlton supporters, how we want this guy, like we want a guy to come in and have that white line fever. Yeah. We also need to know he is a Carlton supporter. Yes. So he will try even harder to make sure that he plays round 1 and keeps his spot, and he wants his team, the team that he loves, the team that his dad played for. He wants to make sure that this club tries to get back to where we belong, and that's in the premiership contention. So, Duff, I'm a huge fan of Harry Dean ever since he's kind of started with Harry Dean potentially coming to the Carlton Football Club, and now that it's locked in, it's very promising, and I can't wait to see him in the navy blue.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. I completely agree. I think he plays the first week. I know his goal for next year, he has said this, that he wants to play round 1 next year. And I know a lot of draftees do say that, but he just has that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what it is. I can't, it's not a particular word or a feeling. I just, that it's just that when I see him and I see highlights, I go, oh, he's just going to be really good, man. What were you going to say? Sorry.
Would you think it would be kind of more confidence and he just has that, not like he's egotistical, but he has that confidence where that's a perfect word. He has the belief where any player he plays on, he is confident that he will get the job done. Is that how you kind of see it as well?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's perfect for our defense because it can free up a guy like Haynes. It can free up a guy like McGovern. Because if I'm not, I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid, but like if he turns like round one and then he's playing on a really good forward, and we go, well, he's the second defender. Like I know you gotta develop, and we've got other guys in there, but if it works out that way, that's probably the best possible scenario because you go him and Weeders locked in. You know, you got Haynes, and that keeps Lewis Young out of the team. Like he's 193. Like he's not he's not 198 or whatever Lewis Young is. But I just feel like a guy who is that competitive, who is that just fierce. The highlights I see of him when he takes a mark and pushes blokes off, a bit of a FU. You know what I mean? It's a bit of that mentality. And if people at home haven't seen his highlights, give him a watch, and then give his father's highlights a watch. Exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It is ridiculous. I know they're father and son, but sometimes, the players aren't always the same as their fathers. Obviously, the Dacos the father was a famous forward, and obviously he's a midfielder with Nick. So, really pleased that we'll get him through the door. And obviously, like you said, the point system is obviously it's a bit all over the place. We've been trying to work it out, but yeah, I think he'll be around that 6-7 mark unless someone comes to the party and like a West Coast and picks him at 2, but I just don't think they will do that. I just don't know if they'll do that, but depends on what their goal is. Maybe they think if they go, we're going to pick him at 2, maybe Carlton have to give them pick 9 for a future. Maybe I'm not sure. So there are a lot to play out there, Pato. But the next player that is pretty much a lock. I'd say they're a lock. These two to come to the club. I don't want to bring out the lock always, but Jack Ison. He's a midfielder. He's a part of the Carlton Academy, which is really pleasing because I think we haven't had many academy guys come through, and I know a lot of other clubs have academies. I know every club pretty much has one now, and I was just reading up on a Geelong kid who, funnily enough, he was actually born in Thailand, and because a lot of the academies are sometimes through like academies where they might be from other countries.
Yes.
And he was actually born in Thailand, but he's Australian, and he found out that he was born in Thailand later on. And I know this is not Carlton, but funnily enough, the Geelong Next Generation Academy, the talent manager or whatever, the head of it, was his teacher.
Wow.
Cool. And then she found out that he's from Thailand and went, well, do you want to be a part of the academy? And now he's going to go to Geelong. And he's from Geelong. So, Geelong just keep winning in that. I thought that was a good kind of academy story to speak about. But in terms of Ison, he's obviously an Oakley Chargers boy, 190 centimetres, that inside mid. When I first kind of looked at him and had a real deep understanding of how he plays, I look at him as a kind of the next generation of a Hewitt, a next generation of a Cripps in terms of that inside. Not saying he's the height of Cripps, but 190 centimetres is pretty tall for a midfielder, I'd say, Pato. And it's just good to have that next gen, that future proof where you go, Hewitt in a couple of years might be finishing up. In comes Ison. In he comes to play. And I think it also puts pressure on a guy like Cooper Lord. When you got a guy, I think Cooper Lord will go from strength to strength. I think he will be a part of that best 22, but there's no guarantees in AFL football, Pato. So if a guy like Ison comes in and plays good footy, you've also got Jagger Smith coming in. So it's exciting, man, and it adds to our depth where I feel like we've had midfield depth, but it's almost another layer of the young guys coming in. You got young guys who can develop in the background, and in 2-3 years' time, you go, fuck, this kid is good. This kid is good, and he's ready to go. So what are your initial thoughts on Ison? Because I think he's kind of risen up in the kind of standings in the draft kind of rankings as such, Pato. So, what are your thoughts?
Oh, mate, like when you went through those names, like the Smith, Lord, and we aren't even mentioning like the Camperelli boys. We aren't even like those are players that. Well, I don't think we even recognise enough. And I know that this is Jack Ison, but Ben and Lucas Camperelli are actually very good footballers as well. So it's heading into next year, the depth we have. That's why as soon as you were going through that, I'm like, we are in a pretty good fucking position because we aren't like just looking at Jack Ison and and say back in 2018, 2019, Sam Walsh would come in and he has to play straight away. The only other player we have is Paddy Cripps. But now it's like we have so many players that can play that position. And I probably see him for the first few years playing a bit more outside, maybe on a wing.
Yeah.
Also, if he's developing his craft in the VFL for 2 years and he comes in and he's ready-made, my good golly. But I just feel like this guy, the way that he plays, and I feel like a lot of these players, they force their way in. Like whether it's through maybe injury or it's purely through form, and a guy who isn't performing in the senior side, he just comes straight in because he just has that, similar to Harry Dean, he just has that CUNT about him. And I just feel I get very much leadership vibes as well. The way that he speaks. I don't know if you've heard him in like interviews, but I'm a huge fan of this guy. I know I've really researched him probably the past few weeks. I know that when we first interested in him, I didn't really know much about him, but now that we're kind of very much interested in him, and it's pretty much 95% that he will be a Carlton Football Club player next year, I have learned to love Jack Ison and the way that he goes about it. So, mate, I'm a huge fan of him. I see a little bit. I will just say this. I think we were expecting Jack Carroll to be this next player, but I think Jack Ison is now going to be that player where now Jack Carroll's not at the club. Jack Ison's a little bit younger. He's going to come straight in. He has that silky left boot. That's why I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, and he has that ability to kick goals forward of the ball. And I think to your point where he might force his way in, he could force his way in as a half forward. He could force his way in. You know what I mean? So he's got that size. He's got that good kick, like you say. So, he's can be a weapon both inside in the middle and also forward of the ball. And it's really, really pleasing, because the most pleasing thing is that those two as a minimum in the draft, like I would just be happy with. Yeah. And obviously we have other picks to use, but if you just came to me, Pato, and went, those two players are coming to Carlton, I'd be okay.
Yeah.
All good.
I thought I would also say as well, we can play this guy at half back. We can play this guy in a Nick Dacos sort of role in his first year, have complete freedom in the half-back flank. He has a great left boot on him. Just put him in the half-back flank. I mean, probably have him on the six, like probably the six forward down there, and just have him play the exact same role that Nick Dacos played in his first year.
Yep.
And then, like, that's something that's another kind of sort of like opportunity, or maybe something like another position that he can learn, because obviously he's a great midfielder, but he can also go forward. But like if he can kind of learn three ways to get into the senior side, I think that's a great opportunity for Jack Ison heading into 2026.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, especially with, you look at guys like Jagger Smith even, and the way he moves around. He could play off a half-back if you had him. Not saying I don't want him in there. I'd probably rather him half-forward mid, of course.
Yeah.
But if an opportunity opens up and you want to get him fucking 30 touches a game off half-back, if obviously the midfield's filled and all that kind of stuff, like there's so many different options for these guys. And I think our recruits have also helped that as well. You look at Florent, he can play half forward, wing, half back, same thing. I'm not saying he is of the ilk of a Jagger Smith. I don't know yet, but I hope Florent takes back to that. Hopefully he turns into a gun, which he can, but it's just that ability to play a few roles. Like I do love having players who lock in their spot, but I think guys who have that good ball use and that explosiveness in any position they play in, they can play in all those roles. They can play in every role pretty much on the ground when you think about it, especially those high roles, whether it's high halfback or high half forward. So we'll move on to the other potential selections. So these names, I feel like the first name that we'll touch on has been kind of linked with us. I think we've had a fair bit of interest in him. And I think it's probably, for me, it's probably a position where we probably need. I think we need one. It's probably the last, kind of icing on top, a little bit of the cherry on top, Pato. And this is Lockie Doverston, or Doverston, however you're supposed to pronounce it. I'm sure we'll learn over the next few weeks when all the nuffs are talking about the draft over the next couple of weeks. But he's probably around that 12 to 13 mark. And I was looking at a few Phantom drafts, and they've got the Demons selecting him at that 12 mark. But I think it really depends on where the Dean bid lands. I know there's so many points as we've touched on, and there's so many different movements. I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say it's a lock, but I think if it's a higher bid, we end up getting a little bit of a better pick. So it'll work around. But I think this is a player I really wanted to touch on because as Kaltumi said on Gettable, he is a player that Carlton have had a look at, and they've done a fair bit of work on. He's 177 centimetres, so he's a little fella.
Yeah.
But I think we need that. And as a small forward, my eyes just go directly to Nick Watson.
Yeah.
And everyone's going, he's too small. He's, you know what I mean? And I guess that's just the initial thoughts of people because they're small players. But I think it's exactly what we need. 170 centimetres. You just stay in the forward line, Lockie. You let Haywood, you let Ainsworth push up if they have to. You let Zach Williams push up. You're literally on the feet, under the feet of Harry Mackay. That's all we got to do. The little fella. You need a guy who's a goal sneak. He seems he's got a bit of a personality too, like a Watson. Likes to kick a goal. I feel like Carlton need that type of player. That just one more in that forward line. It puts pressure on a Motlop. You know, it probably pushes out a Fogarty out of the forward line. You know, so it's interesting to see, and obviously he's rated highly. So I'd imagine there'd be. I know Toomey says we've had a look at him. I'd imagine a few clubs have had a look at him, especially when you're in the top, when you're in the top 15 around there. So, what are your thoughts, Pato? Because I'd be extremely happy if we got him over the line with our other additions.
Oh, the highlights I've seen of I think it is Davison, but also that might be completely wrong. But it just the way that he goes about it, I'm just a huge fan of him. And I think it's exactly what Nick Watson is. And I feel like when he was drafted, there was because he was drafted to pick 3, pick 4. I think Watson. Five. So he was a top 5 pick. And a lot of the sort of the negative talk around Watson was he is too small. And we've seen what Caleb Daniel has done at the Dogs and obviously now at North Melbourne. But now Nick Watson, he's playing as a small forward, and he's probably their number 1 small forward at Hawthorn. And I think it's only his first year, second year, even. So, second. Second. So I think with a guy like this, and as you've said so many times, even on text message with you and I, it's someone that we don't have. It is a smaller forward, classy. And once again, he has that CUNT about him.
Yes.
And once again, he has that personality about him. If he gets a goal and he kicks a goal against Collingwood and Maynard gets into him, great. We need to have
a little pest. A little pest. Someone that every other team hates. You love to have him, but you hate him when they're playing your team. Like Watson, exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we've really lost with Matt Owies. And I know, unfortunately, I would much rather Davison over Owies. I just think Davison is a little bit more talented, all due respect to Owies.
Yeah.
But I just think that if we can have the best of both worlds where we have probably a more talented player and a bit more of that CUNT about him, I personally think that Jesse Motlop and whoever else in that small forward, also Frankie Evans as well, they would be a little bit nervous. Well, not nervous, but it's now there is competitive.
Yeah, great.
It's competing for the same spot, which I think is great because I don't think we need to have too many small forwards because now we have Ainsworth and Haywood. They are both locks in that forward line alongside Mackay. That's 3 already. Then whether we have maybe we have a Frankie Evans as that fourth forward, and then we have Davison. I just think it's great to have this guy kind of drafted. And once again, if he's playing VFL all year, dominating in the VFL, that's fine because he is learning his craft as a young footballer, as a young small forward, probably their hardest position in the AFL. I just think, I personally think if we have a chance to get this guy in, whether we trade with obviously the trade that we're about to touch on later on.
Yep.
I don't know exactly how we get it done, but if we have an opportunity to get Davison into the Carlton Football Club, I think it has to be done, Daffy Boy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the best part about a small forward, a young small forward, I think they can make an impact straight away.
Yeah,
I think they can play as soon as round one because it's a tough role, but I think it's a role that can be filled by someone who's younger and maybe a little bit slighter in size, like in size. Like you look at Watson. I know he's a top 5 pick and probably could have been higher with North passing on him, but like it's that zip and zap I think we really need, and someone to get us excited because we've got Ainsworth, we've got Hayward, like you said. They're going to bring that excitement, but that little cherry on the top would be nice to have a nice little small forward in there. And if that doesn't happen, let's hope Jesse turns into that player. Because obviously we already have him at the club, so it's a little bit easier to speak about him. But next, so I was looking at different Phantom drafts, and there was a few scenarios where the Dean bid ended up turning that into a pick 19, 18, around that mark. And I know we've brought in a couple guys with Chesser and Florent who can fill roles like that half forward wing. Bless you, Pato. He's trying to hide it on the mute. If you listen on podcasts, he just had a sneeze and he's just giving me the bird. But we've had, I feel like in the AFL these days, there's not enough of these types of players.
Yes.
And the player I'm talking about is Harley Barker, and he's from the Sturt Footy Club in South Australia. He's a mid-wing. Unfortunately, he did his ACL this year, so he won't be available until halfway into 2026. But, I think it could be one of those blessing in disguises.
Yes.
He has done his knee. He probably could have pushed into the top 10, but now he's done his knee and he's hid in the background, and now he's going to be around that. He could be one of those steals, Pato. So, yeah, he's a mid-wing, 187. Good speed, good ball use. I think, he can play that wing, half back, half forward. Like he's just one of those modern day players. And if he's one of those guys who can slip to pick 18, and he probably is a pick 10, but because of his injury, I look at Brody Kemp. He was rated in the top 10 of his draft, did his knee in that season. And I think we got him at 18 or something like that. So, it is pleasing. I think he's, ball in hand is something that it's his strength. I think that's a lot of our players isn't their strength. I think of the players who have brought in, it is their strength, and that's what we're trying to improve, our ball use, obviously. And I think the way we play will change as a result of the recruits, and also based on some of the rule changes that came in yesterday, Pato, which I think will play a massive part, not only with these types of players, but with the ruckman. And one name is Mark Pitternet.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Barker, Pato? Because I think it's a guy that can play numerous amount of roles. I know we've got guys like, Carrolls who are good off halfbacks and other guys off the wing, Chesser coming in. But if you just add that layer, you just keep adding those layers and top quality players, it puts pressure on those other guys. And sometimes, I know you speak about a Lucas Camporelli, but if a guy like this elevates himself, where does that leave a Lucas Camporelli? On the fringe, which I think is a great scenario for us.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I'm looking at this where I think the evolution of wingmen have really grown, where I think you need to have smart, good ball users on the wing. You can't just have, not unfortunately, but we have a guy like Blake Acres whose ball use isn't his strong suit. So I think if you can get a guy like Barker in, and I with what I've seen in terms of highlights, I think I've seen a lot of just smart, he just has, very hard to put the pressure on him with this, but I think he has that kind of IQ of a Pendlebury, not anywhere near that.
No.
But if he can learn that craft, I just think he kind of sees the play early. And I feel like his ball use is great. And I think it's something that, as it says here as well, a hard running wingman with speed. It's not like he's slow. And also he's 188 centimeters. So once again, he's not small.
Yeah.
So I think it's promising that we can have a guy like this. And I personally don't think it will happen. But if we can get a guy like this into the draft, into the club, that means that once again, Acres, there is some pressure on him. Ollie Hollands, if he moves to the wing, there is more pressure on him. Matt Cottrell as well. He will be returning to the side. That's even more pressure. It's going to be, it's so promising. And now we don't even have a Jackson Binns or an Elijah Hollands on that wing anymore because they aren't even in the club. We probably need to have an extra guy coming in. So
probably.
But I'm a huge fan of him with what I've seen. But also, I don't think he will get to the Carlton Football Club because I feel like someone else will take him earlier.
Yeah, and also if we end up having a higher pick, he might be too deep in the draft to even worry about. So, it's going to be an interesting watch. But yeah, those players are probably. I think where we've based this video is where our picks could land and where those guys are ranked, and if we've been linked to them or not. Doverston obviously around that pick 12 and Barker around that pick 19 mark in a few fandom drafts. Pato. So now. This is a bit of a bonus of the episode. Obviously, we've spoken more about, the players that might be around our mark, the academies and all that. Now we're going to move to a potential trade, Pato. And I think this gets people excited. I think it gets me excited. I think it gets you excited, Pato, just to think about trades that might not happen. But if they do happen, it could go a long way into nailing this draft. And it's pretty much this trade is pretty much a trade up to avoid a Dean bid at 7. That will eat up our pick 9. So here's the trade, Pato. And before I put the ticker up of the player, because I don't want to put the player up there yet. Essendon's draft hand at the moment, and their 3 best picks are 6, 21, and 27. Right. So it looks like
30? And 30 or not?
And 30. And 30, yes. And 30, sorry. And looks like a pick 6, they might pick a guy that has been a bolter, and I'm going to put his name up now, and it's Sullivan Roby, and he's a mid forward. Well, we were kind of calling him Adobe, being the social media heads that we are, old Adobe Roby. So the draft would be, the trade would be 6, 21, 27, and 30 to Carlton. So Carlton get those picks. We end up getting a pick before the bid. That likely is at 7. And we give up 9 and 11 to Essendon. And this trade, the reason why we would do this trade, it would help us get Harry Dean with the points with 21, 27, and 30. And we would get a chance at a top-tier draft prospect. Yeah. Not saying this is a high chance of happening, but I think it's probably one of the more realistic ones. I don't know if Richmond trade out. I don't think West Coast would give up one of their top 2 picks. I just don't think they would do that in this sense. I don't think, 1 or 2 we would get 1 or 2 for a pick 9, Pat. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. I think just getting a little bit further up in the draft. And I think the player we would get if we had pick 6 would be Sullivan Roby. A mid-forward, 192. He's the draft bolter. I think every club, I've almost smashed my mic there. I'm that excited. He's 192. He's explosive. He's on ball. Can play a few roles. Can kick goals. He has flown into the top 10. I think he's ranked 6, Pato. I want to hear your thoughts. Not on just Roby, but the trade that it looks like. And credit to ESPN. They've put that trade on my mind, and I've actually completely agree with them. I think that would be the most likely. Not saying it will happen, but what are your thoughts on the trade, Pato? And also, what are your thoughts on Sullivan, Adobe, Roby?
Imagine if his real name's Adobe.
That would,
or even better, Photoshop, or even better, Premiere Pro. Jesus, Creative Cloud.
Some people at home are like, what the are these guys talking about? Anyway.
But now I think another thing to also touch on, which is a good thing, is so with that exact trade with Essendon with 6, 21, 27, and 30, and us with our 9 and 11, we get pick 6. 21 and 27 should be enough to get Dean. If not, it would be 30. But also with the picks we have with 43, 54, 67, 72, we can get Ison. So we can get Dean, Ison, and a pick 6 player. I mean, and I know that might drop to maybe 10, 11.
You'd be 8 or 9. I think I'm seeing. So yeah. So and that pretty much, it doesn't mean they're not going to be rated at 6. It's just that the academy players are pushing out those. So a guy like Roby's ranked at 6, but he's expected to go at 8.
Yeah, and that's not bad. That's definitely not bad at all. So we can get Roby, Ison, and Dean, and that's all of our picks done. And I just think, I know that we were speaking about it earlier, it's something that we probably don't expect Essendon to accept.
It'd be stupid, yeah.
It would be pretty silly. But also, you're thinking about it, and I'm like, if their kind of mindset is heading into a rebuild, they can get one player at pick 6, which would probably be Roby, or they can get 9 and 11 and get 2 first-round picks. I don't know where Essendon are, like where their head is at, but I personally think if I was an Essendon supporter and knowing that, like, if Essendon comes out and says we are heading into a rebuild, we want to get as many young players in as possible, I'm probably doing this this kind of trade because you've got pick 9 and pick 11. I personally think it's a win-win from that sense. But I also don't think Essendon will accept it, knowing that we would already have Dean and Ison, and it also opens the door for us to get a guy like Roby, which is a player that Essendon is very much interested in. So with what I've seen about Roby, I'm a huge fan of him. I know that we said earlier, like, not the way that he plays, but the way that he looks, once again, has that Zach Butters look, and he just has that C-U-N-T. He wears a shoulder tape every single game. I personally think the way that he plays, it's kind of more, it's a little bit more bullish, I feel.
Yeah, it's explosive, 192, half, forward, mid. That smells of real good player. Really good player.
And, like, when you kind of hear those stats, you probably would expect it to probably be a Marcus Bontempelli, explosive, and also good ball user. I'm a huge fan of him. Once again, I think I've been a huge fan of every single player on this league before, but I just think if we can find a way to get this done, once again, we say it so many times, we're in such a good position because we can get Dean and Ison. We can also get Roby. We would have enough for Cody Walker next year, just before Tassie comes into the draft 2027. And that means that our future is almost set because we've got Jagger, we've got Lord, we've got other guys. We've got Harry O'Farrell and Harry Dean in the back half. We probably need an extra key forward, but we can also get Doverston as well. Like, I know that we probably can't get all 3, but all 4.
Yeah.
If it's Doverston or Roby, I'm kind of happy either way. So, Daff, I'm such a fan with how, if all of this comes into fruition and we can actually get something done with this, I'll be a huge fan of it. And I'm a huge advocate of trying to get as many players in the draft for this year and next year to make sure when Tassie comes in, we're in a good position for 5-10 years down the track.
Yeah, you've been really strong on that, haven't you? With the Tassie draft, and it is really important to set yourself up before it, or whether you get picks through that draft. I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of clubs moving around and hopefully avoiding a rebuild during that time. And when you look at Roby, it's probably a win-win, the 9-11, but I also think Essendon are at a stage now where they need that star. They need that guy, I think.
Very good point.
I think they've got the caddies, they've got the Kako, they've got the Archie Roberts behind the ball. They've got a few other guys. I know they've got a lot of holes in that list, but he'll play straight away. He'll play in the middle. He'll be a star. So, it's going to be an interesting watch. There's still, 18 or 19 days, Pato, but I think we've covered the draft really well. And, I'm looking forward to see what Carlton have up their sleeve. And I'm sure we'll talk about different updates as they come over the next few days and weeks. So we'll definitely keep on top of that for everyone, all our subscribers.
Yep. Well said. Another player that you missed out on for Essendon point of view, apparently they have the better Mackay and Ben Mackay as their key defender, Daffy Boy. So I just thought I would also say that. So they're pretty good because they got Ben Mackay as their key defender coming up against Harry Mackay, the better Mackay, apparently. But that's all right. We'll try and steer clear from that, Daffy Boy. But very well said, very well wrapped up. I know it would have been tough because usually I'm kind of running the reins, but you did it very, very well, Daffy Boy, as always. I think the information you did, or there, make sure to give Daff some credit because he actually did that whole run sheet. So credit to him, as always, and it just shows that in the background, Daffy Boy, you always are doing the best you can to get this podcast and channel as best as possibly could be. But before we wrap up the video, Daffy Boy, is there anything else you would like to touch on? Because obviously we're heading into the draft and there probably isn't a lot of content coming our way, but we obviously will try and keep on top of it wherever it comes. But before we head towards probably our last video before the draft, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, it's obviously when we get real close to the draft, I'd imagine we'll get a lot more information and gauge on what picks we have. So we'll definitely do a video before then, and obviously post draft on whatever happens. So there'll be plenty of more content. And I'd like to know a question to everyone. I'd like to know what players they're looking at in the draft outside of Ison and Dean. What do they want to do? What trades they want to do? Do they want to go up? Do they want to go into next year's draft? I'd really like to know what their thoughts are and if there's a player that's tickling their fancy, Pato.
Very well said. Very well said. But to every single blue bagger out there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube channel. As Duff said, I think we will try and keep on top as much content coming your way as possible. So we'll try and do our best from a Bagger Shape point of view. But if you can't, if you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also check out our socials as well, because we try and update as much as possible on those channels, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. There's a few others out there, so make sure to get around that. But to you, Daffy boy, and to every single blue bagger out there, the bag.